Good evening, everyone. You're joining from different cities, you're joining from different countries. Welcome. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. We would love to hear which cities are you joining from. Typically we have ISB applicants here who are probably from India, but we do have several people applying to ISB from different countries. So feel free to post in the chat where are you currently based, and when you do that, we would love to hear if you are looking to apply to ISB this year, and if you're applying in round 1 or round 2 or round 3, what do you have on mind? And when you do that, of course, while you do that, I will introduce myself. I will introduce our guest, our ISB expert, Sanjay Dhingra, very soon. So I see there are people joining from Pune, Bangalore, which are our typical cities, Ahmedabad as well. Okay, great. So we do have people trickling in, and when people join in gradually, I have. Let's start with a quiz, and the quiz is, which year did ISB's first batch graduate? So ISB started a few years ago. When did the first batch graduate? You can type it in the chat window.
Can I make a try as well?
Not at all. Okay, we are waiting for an answer to which year did ISB's first batch graduate. Okay, we have someone saying 2001, 2008. Any other answers?
Both are wrong, but I shouldn't be giving that away, right? Okay. So some more responses coming in: 2000, 2002, 2008, 2001, 2001, 2002. Okay.
Okay, not bad. So yes, ISB did admit its first batch in 2001, but 2002, those who answered 2002, that's the correct answer. And ISB is celebrating. So if you noticed if you've been following ISB, you would have noticed that ISB is celebrating its 20th year. PM Modi visited the school. And so congrats to ISB, and congrats to ISB Mantra, which is celebrating its 10th year this year. So on that note, let us begin. I am happy to introduce myself. I am Prashant Tibrewal. I am the founder of ISB Mantra, which is a leading admissions consulting company for ISB. I am an MIT Sloan alum, and I have been helping applicants apply to ISB and multiple schools over the last 10 years. And I have with me Sanjay Dhingra. He is a senior mentor at ISB. And what's more interesting is that he was an associate director for admissions at ISB for over 4 years. So we will leverage his insights and all the knowledge that he can bring in as an insider. So
good evening, everyone.
Welcome, Sanjay, and thanks for joining us. Before we get into the session, let us run through the agenda. What are we going to discuss today in the next 1 hour or so? So first, we will touch upon the application timeline. When to apply, what are the timelines? Second, what is the ideal profile for ISB? And then building a strong application. A lot of you want to know how to build a strong application. And then the fourth segment will touch upon how to make your application different, especially if you are from an overrepresented pool. And then quite a few are reapplicants. So we will touch upon reapplying to ISB, and then that will be followed by Q&A. So your questions that you ask, we will be happy to answer them. And of course, through the session, we will also have a big announcement to make. So wait for that. Okay, so let's enter the session right away, and to touch upon the timelines, which is first on our agenda. There are, if you have planned to apply to ISB, you would know that 4th September is the round 1 deadline. ISB typically has 3 deadlines, and 4th September is when you'll be applied through round 1, but round 2 and round 3 are going to be announced as well, which ISB has not announced yet. And typically, based on the previous years, what we can estimate is early December is when they may have the 2nd round, and late January is when they may have the 3rd round, but we'll have to wait for the official announcement. So on that note, Sanjay, I would like you to come in and ask you the first question. So candidates are at different stages of their application or GMAT preparation. And we are often asked this question: when is the best time to apply? Is it round one, round two, round three? So what is your suggestion?
So, to be very candid, right, between round one and round two, it doesn't make too much of a difference. Yes, there are some additional scholarships which are dedicated to round one, but round one and round two, your chances of getting an admit tend to remain the same. Round three, of course, there are some spots left, but it's very few. Usually, around 85 to 90% of the cohort would be filled in the first two rounds. So, if you're able to apply, then do apply in round one or round two. If not, you can make a try in round three, but my recommendation would be to target the round one or the round two.
Right, and of course, when you talk to ISB, they encourage you to apply. They encourage you to apply any round when you are best prepared. But to what Sanjay mentioned, what I would like to highlight is the fact that there's certainly an advantage of applying in round one, because you start, or ISB starts with a blank slate. So if you are, especially if you are from a diverse profile, then because if you are from an engineering profile, yes, there are enough seats for engineering candidates, and Sanjay will touch upon on that as well. But if you're from a diverse profile, then ISB doesn't want to fill their class with too many army officers or with too many people who. So we had a candidate who was a full-time trek leader. So ISB doesn't want too many diverse candidates in the class, because that's not the core profile. But if you're from a diverse profile, and if you see that round one is taken by a few candidates, then you lose that advantage. So that is one part of the application cycle. But what I always say is, you apply when you are the best prepared, but you better be prepared early on. So moving on, we will touch upon the ideal profile. And I have been asked many times, what is the GMAT score that will get you in? What profile does ISB prefer? Or I'm a software engineer, but I have great extracurriculars. So what is the best profile? What is the profile that ISB looks for? It's not easy to answer these questions. But Sanjay, can you help us crack that formula?
Sure. So, see, it's no rocket science. Firstly, let me tell you this, that there's no rocket science. We get asked this question here: what is the weightage for this parameter, weightage for that parameter, and what is it that ISB looking for, and why is it so difficult to crack? Truthfully, there's no rocket science to that. ISB is looking for fairly simple things from a candidate, right? And if I had to describe those, I would say there are three things that the school is looking for. One is, of course, the value that you bring to the classroom. So, and you would see that in this year's essay one. We'll discuss the essay one in a bit, but you'll see that ISB is asking you, what value do you bring to the classroom, to your peers, through your experiences, through your background. So what is it that you bring to the table? So that's one thing that the school is looking for. The second thing that the school is looking for is your ability to learn or absorb or keep up with the curriculum that is being taught, right? It's a competitive program. Imagine studying with 850, 900 of the top MBA candidates in the country. And these are people who come from some of the top undergrad institutions in the world, in the country. They have worked in top tier organizations and have really good capability to survive that classroom experience. So the school is looking for your capacity to cope up with the curriculum. So basically your learnability, right? Would you be able to learn and absorb from what is being taught through the program and what is the knowledge being imparted? That's the second thing. The last thing that the school is looking for is your employability or recruitability. Why I say this is because, see, at the end of the day, right, how much ever we may deny this, a school's reputation is built by the employment statistics that it gets, right? You have more number of people getting into tier one consulting, your reputation goes up. You have more number of people getting into tier one FMCG, your reputation goes up. You have your people getting into top tech companies, Amazon, Microsoft, all of these, the school's reputation goes up. So the school is also looking for what kind of career outcomes that you would be able to achieve as a graduate, as an alumnus of the school. So they are also looking at your employability and recruitability. Of course, all of these three parameters, right? get evaluated through different things in the application. So your academic scores, GMAT scores, essays, recommendation, interview performance, all of those play a role in evaluating these things. But broadly, these are the three things that the school is looking for. So I'm going to reiterate. So your peer value, or the value that you bring to the classroom, your learnability, your ability to cope with the curriculum, and your employability or recruitability, or the attraction, how attractive you would be to the potential recruiters who recruit at ISB. So these are the three things that the school is broadly looking at.
Right. And I think that's a great way to objectively specify what ISB looks for and how a candidate can assess their own profile, because we get so many candidates coming to us saying, hey, can you evaluate my profile? And we evaluate on these 3 or 4 parameters where we look at, so one can be from any background, but if they are able to demonstrate strong strengths and abilities on these 4 parameters, I think there is no reason to believe that a certain profile is better than the other, a certain GMAT is better than the other. I mean, one can show these through multiple components in the application. And talking about that, we would love to touch upon what are the different components of the application that ISB has, and which ones do you think are the most important?
Okay. So I hope all the people in this session right now have started working on the application. If you're looking at the 2023 intake, even if you're applying in round 2 or round 3, it always makes sense to log into the application portal, create a profile over there, and look at what are the application requirements, right? And you can gauge what the school, what is the weightage, what is the value, basis what is being asked in the application form as well. So think about it. In the application form, the first thing that you fill when you start creating your profile are your academic scores, right? Your academic history and your academic scores. What play a role over there, or which academic scores play a role in the evaluation, are your class 12 scores, your undergrad scores, and if you have a master's or if you have a postgrad education, then those scores. There's some weightage assigned to each one of those. Most important are your undergrad scores. Class 12 has some weightage, but amongst these three, your undergrad, and if you have a postgrad, then your postgrad scores have the most weightage, right? So they show your ability to cope with the curriculum or absorb what is being taught in the classroom. So your past academic performance kind of becomes a reflection of your future academic performance. So that's why your academic scores matter. The next thing, once you start looking at the application form, you'd see that GMAT or GRE scores are asked, right? So either one of them is mandatory. Now, again, what may happen and why this is asked, right? Someone may have not very strong academic scores, but they can compensate for that and show their ability to cope up with the rigorous curriculum at ISB by getting a strong GMAT or a GRE score. So GMAT, GRE score, they play an important role. So whichever one you submit, it doesn't matter. The score does matter, right? But that doesn't mean that only the highest scorers get through, right? You may have an average score, but if you're strong in the other parameters, then you can make it even with an average score. So it's a combination of all these factors. Your academic score, GMAT, GRE scores, they matter. Then as you get into the application, right, there's going to be a work experience section where you talk about your responsibilities and achievements for each job role that you've held. This again tells the school about what is your track record of performing at the workplace, what kind of profile do you have over here, and what kind of outstanding achievements that you may have over there, right? Gives an indication. Again, past performance kind of becomes a reflection of future performance over here. So your work profile, your achievements, those matter. So that becomes an important component of the application. Again, as you move on in the application form, there's a section asking you for your interests and hobbies, right? Your extracurriculars. So what are the extracurricular achievements you have? If you're not outperformed at the workplace, if you're not outperformed in the academic area, then do you have something in the extracurricular domain where you have outperformed, right? So for example, people who pursue sports at the professional level, right? They may have your fairly average academic scores, may not have really good GMAT GRE score, but may have an outstanding extracurricular profile, right? Achievements over there. So that becomes an important parameter in case your first two components are not too strong, right? So you can stand out through your extracurricular achievements. Again, as you move on to in the application, you'll see that essays are required, right? Your essay, one topic this year is around peer learning. So the school is asking you about what value you can bring to the classroom through your experiences, how you can contribute to your peers' learning and contribute to their knowledge building. So that essay becomes an important component. Your career goals essay, that becomes an important component to evaluate your fit with the program. and then the recommendation, right? There's one recommendation required. It needs to be a professional recommendation. And again, this tells the school whether whatever you're claiming through the application, right? You're saying, hey, I've done this kind of work in my organization, I made this contribution. Do you have someone else who believes in you and provides a testament to your contribution or not? So the recommendation plays a role as well. Now, again, some of these are quantitative parameters. So your academic scores, your GMAT scores are quantitative parameters. Your work profile, extracurricular profile, your essays, your recommendations, these are qualitative parameters. So it's easy to assign quantitative weightage to the quantitative parameters. So there's weightage assigned to your academic scores, there's weightage assigned to your GMAT score. The subjective parameters, right, or the qualitative parameters, they are more flexible. It depends on your, to some extent, it depends on the evaluator, how they read it, how they evaluate your profile. So there's some subjectivity. So in the initial evaluation, these may not have as high a weightage as the GMAT and the academic scores, but as you get into the interview round, right, once you get shortlisted for the interview, then the profile, your recommendations, your essays start playing more and more important role. So all of these need to be done to the best of your ability. Don't think, hey, if I get a great GMAT score, I'll surely make it, or if my GMAT score is below average, I'll not make it. Make sure you do your best on all of these parameters, because you never know what may work in your favor. And with a strong profile, strong essay, strong recommendation, you may make it to ISB even with an average GMAT or average academic score. So make sure that you do your best to all of these and don't shortchange yourself by compromising on either one.
Right. I mean, that's very comprehensive, Sanjay. And there are a couple of questions in the chat about, hey, I have low academic scores, I have more than 10 years of experience. And I think what you touched upon did answer their question partially, that there are multiple components to the application and how one can compensate the other. If you have low academic scores, show them the learnability through a high GMAT or GRE. But beyond that, what you also emphasized is the fact that there are multiple components, all of them are important. So not just focus on your GMAT, not just focus on your essays. Don't take your initiatives and achievements section lightly. Don't take your recommendation lightly. Go to the person who may give you the best recommendation. So and that is why the entire application process takes so much time, that people who are more serious about their application, they are able to commit that time and get that result. So great. That was good learning for everyone. And of course, the next on our agenda is the essays. So it's an important component of the application where people spend so much time. So let's get to the essays. And of course, there are two essays. And before we get into the essays, I have another quiz at you. And I would love to hear from our audience here, how many full-time programs does ISB have? You can type your answer in the comment section. How many full-time programs does ISB have? Three, 20, certainly not 20. Okay. So 3 is a common answer, which is not correct. So we are waiting for more answers. How many full-time programs does ISB have? Okay. 3, 4, 2. We don't have the right answer yet. Okay, very interesting. Sanjay, did you expect these answers?
No, I mean, the answer is actually quite obvious, but I would let you break the surprise to them.
Right. So Muhammad Avesh is correct, and surprisingly, he's the only one correct. ISB has only one full-time program, and all the other programs, PGP Pro, PGP Max, MFAB, or the certifications, all of them are delivered either modular or part-time model. But why I ask this now is because ISB has the YLP and the early entry option and the PGP, but it's the PGP that is the program. YLP and EEO are just entry channels, right? So the idea is, if you the conversation we have and the essays that we are going to discuss now will focus on the PGP and the EEO, which have the same process. whereas the YLP has a different application cycle in the process, though it leads to the same program. So ultimately, all three, PGP, YLP, and EEO, you crack any of these, you sit in the same class with the same set of people. Okay, great. So we're talking about the essays, and PGP and EEO are the ones that have the same set of essays and same application. And typically there are two essays. So Sanjay, would you like to discuss the ISB essays?
So I'm gonna actually turn the tables around over here. See, as an admission officer, right, I would have evaluated over the course of the 4 admission cycles that I ran over there, and then YLP, PGP, PGP Pro, all of these. I was possibly evaluated over 7,000 applicants, maybe more. So thousands of applications and interviewed multiple thousands. But see, our challenge becomes when you're evaluating an application, right? You're looking at more critical aspects. You don't have to bother actually making the application. So evaluating is the easier part. Making the application is the more difficult part. So at this point, I'm going to turn the tables around and actually put this to Prashant, because you would have more experience making the applications or working with the candidates or guiding them on the application. So I'm going to put this to you now, and let's start with each essay, right? So we'll evaluate both the essays one by one, and then maybe also discuss the reapplicant essay. But let's start with essay 1. So the topic has changed this year. For the last 2 years, the essay topic was remaining the same. But this year the topic has changed, and it's come around peer learning. So I'm going to read out the topic for those of you who have not logged into the application portal yet. I'm going to read out the topic for your benefit, and then I'm going to let Prashant share his expert opinion on that. So the topic is peer learning is a major building block of PGP at ISB. Help us in understanding how will you be able to add value to the PGP peer group through your personal and professional qualities, capabilities. So this is the same thing which I was talking about, your peer contribution. The first aspect that ISB looks for is what value you bring to the ISB classroom through your experiences. And this topic is bang on that. How do you contribute to the peer learning at ISB? So Prashant, over to you for some tips on this.
Thank you, Sanjay. So certainly, it's interesting that ISB has this question, and like you discussed, peer learning and how one can add value to the class is also important to the class and to ISB. We will get there, but before that, I must establish that ISB typically had over the years two essays. I mean, of course, there's the optional and the reapplicant essay, but then two main essays. One has been about how what you bring to the table, what are your qualities, what are your skills, what are your achievements. So it's been around your skills and achievements, and the second one has been around the career goals. So the aligned with that, and of course every year there is a rewording on the central theme, and this year the focus is on peer learning. Now, like Sanjay read out the essay, the crux is how will you add value to the PGP peer group? How will you, when you are in the class, you have been given that one coveted seat. How will you bring value to that class? And why is peer learning so important? Because ISB as a cohort, 900 people in the class, but not all of them are on the same campus. So it's Hyderabad and Mohali, but still almost 600, 500 people on one campus. So peer learning becomes all the more important because there is a lot of learning from your peers. I mean, there are so many opportunities. There are defined study groups. There are professional and personal clubs where you work together with your peers. There are so many assignments and tasks. There is expectation that you will add value to the class in terms of class discussion, and above all, how ISB your peers or your classmates would take pride in graduating with the fact that they know you. So the network that the ISB, the Indian School of Business, is able to bring to you. So there, how can, I mean, one, we realize, yes, peer learning is important, peer group is important, but how can you demonstrate that you are that one person who will bring that value? You are that one person who others would love to hang around with, others would love to learn from. And I think there are three ways that you can think about that. One is your industry and function. So if you are a chartered accountant, for example, then you others would love to learn from you things around finance, and when there is a class discussion, you will be able to bring that perspective. If you are a part of a study group, there are others from marketing and product management, etc., whereas you are able to bring that finance perspective. And the same goes for the marketing and the product management person, or whichever industry or function you come from, you bring that insight, and it's your responsibility through your essay to establish that this is something that you are an expert at. I mean, whether it's your industry, whether it's your function, you could be a pharma industry expert, you could be a finance expert, you could be a energy sector expert. So don't don't just touch upon the fact that you come from a certain industry, but try and establish that you really are an insider, and that will probably nail it for you. The second aspect is the specific skills that you may have demonstrated, because there are certain skills that we get to demonstrate in any industry, any function. I mean, sometimes it is people skills, your leadership skills, your analytical skills. So try and touch upon what skills do you bring to the table, what skills will you add to the class, so that when there is a group of ISB students working together, they will count on you for your data skills, they will count on you for your analytical skills or people skills. Okay, and the third aspect is any personal attributes or personal skills that you bring. And it can be because once you are at ISB, you'll realize that there is so much beyond what is being taught. People, I mean, students just explore. There are jam sessions, there are sessions. I mean, frisbee is an important and interesting sport at ISB. Students love, and there's so many sports, so many activities. So if you, for example, if you've been a track leader, so bring that out in your application. If you probably helped a local school modernize in certain ways, and that model was adopted by other schools, so try and bring in what you did outside your work that shows certain personal attributes, traits, your ability to take initiatives. And if you club these three together, then you have a holistic package of what you bring to the table. But do not forget to back them up with examples, because if you don't touch upon the right examples, if you just keep claiming things, I mean, what they often say, don't say but show. So how do you show it is more important than what do you say, because anyone can claim that I love taking initiatives, I am hardworking, I am committed. Okay, but unless you show it with relevant examples from the past, then there is no point just claiming 100 skills or 100 attributes through your essay. So examples are super important. And then more of a personal recommendation: don't pack your essay with personal examples just because you think, oh, everything I have done, I'm a software engineer, all I've done is developing products or codes or testing them, so there's nothing that I can write there. Why not bring in a lot of personal examples? I mean, there's no formula to it, but I personally believe that your professional skills are extremely important to ISB. You cannot get into a business school just based on your personal skills, because personal skills are icing on the cake, but you cannot have the cake with the icing. So you will have to build a strong base. You will, I mean, you've worked for n number of years, you've 4, 5, 6, how many ever years. So you cannot say, hey, I've worked for 5 years, but I don't have much to talk about that. Let's talk about my trekking experience that I had last year, or let's talk about my trip to Ladakh or the backpacking trip I did across Europe. So that is good, and if you bring the right elements, why not? But limit yourself, control yourself when we are discussing the personal examples, and try and build your essay with the base of professional experiences. Okay, so great. I think that is the formula to building a strong peer learning essay. If that helps.
Yep,
Sanjay, over to you.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think one thing, or I would add on one point over here, look at also evaluate the areas that you can contribute to ISB, right? So you see, you can contribute inside the classroom, right? By being a good student, participating in classroom discussions, participating in your the assignments that are given to your study group, contributing to those. So look at, do you have something through which you can contribute to those discussions, right? And usually through your past experiences, projects, knowledge that you have, you may be able to contribute to that, to the classroom experience. Then outside the classroom, you can either contribute to a professional club. So, for example, the marketing club, the strategy club, the retail club, the finance club, right? So see if you have something in your past, what you have done, through which you can be a good addition as an administrator or a member of these clubs. So look at your professional contribution. You can also try to evaluate from the viewpoint of social clubs, right? So there's a sports club, there's drama club, there's music club, there's a radio club, there used to be a golf club, and so on and so forth, right? So look at, also see if there's something that you have done in the past through which you can contribute to one of those social clubs, right? So that could be a lens that you can use to identify what kind of stories you can bring out. And as Prashant said, right? Talk about examples. Usually through that essay, through a 400-word essay, you can surely talk about 2 examples, talk about 2 stories or 2 experiences. You may also be able to get in a third one, but try not to go beyond that. Otherwise, your essay would be like 2 line stories, 10 stories, and that's just messy without having any substance. So limit yourself to 2, at best 3 stories, 3 examples, but make them strong. Bring in the depth and talk about how those experiences would actually bring value to ISB. With that, let me move to the next essay topic. And this is a standard one. I think it has been around since the last 10, 12 years or whatever the longest time I can think about is your career goals, right? What are your short and long term career goals? And how would the PGP at ISB assist you in achieving your goals? So this is the next one. It's a plain vanilla one. Usually you're required for most schools. ISB has had it for the longest time. So Prashant, the question over here is not your what career goals to talk about, but how to make it interesting, how to make those career goals relevant to what ISB has to offer you. So any suggestions or tips on that?
Right. So, like you discussed, this essay has been there for a very long time, ever since at least I've been helping students for the last 11 years. But why has ISB not changed this? Because it's very important for ISB to know what do you want, because they don't want someone spending an important year of their life, leaving their job, and of course all the fees that you pay, and come there and realize, oh, this is not for me. So it's a waste of a seat at ISB, and it's a waste of your time and money, which is not what they would like. So that is why this exercise of understanding what do you expect from your MBA, and trust me, many of the applicants don't know exactly what they want. But I always equate it with going to an investor and saying, hey, give me money and then I'll figure out what I want to do. You go to them, you go to an investor as a startup founder with some plan. It's okay if the investor comes on board and advises you to modify that plan, but you can't say, I don't have a plan, just give me money because I'm great. Okay, so same thing, same analogy with ISB application or any business school application. You go there with a plan, tell them what your plan is. It may be completely feasible, it may be partially feasible, but then the idea is one should have that vision, because you're taking such an important decision in your life of leaving your job, investing so much time and money. And when you look at the question that is asked, there are 3 components to it: the short-term goal, the long-term goal, and how can ISB help you achieve it, or why ISB. And on the face of it, you may be tempted to, if it's a 400-word essay, you may be tempted to break the entire essay into 3 parts and probably develop 3 paragraphs: one on your short-term goal, another on your long-term, another on your on why ISB or how ISB will help you. But that is a very common mistake. That is a very common error that candidates do, because you cannot give as much importance to your long-term goal as your short-term goal, because short-term is imminent, it is right there. Long-term goal will eventually happen. You may not have as much clarity about your long-term goal as your short-term goal. And then writing a long paragraph about why ISB is not going to get you in, because you can imagine, there is, no matter what you write, there are thousands of others applying, and ISB would have heard it several times. So we'll touch upon what to write there, but then when you start thinking of this essay, don't just start thinking of 3 parts which are equally important. 3 parts where the short-term goal is super, super important. Okay. And then in decreasing order of importance, there is the long-term goal, and then why ISB. Okay, and I'll tell you why. But when we touch upon the short-term goal, I see a prompt on the screen, the ideal career goal. And there is no ideal career goal, because it's very easy to say, I want to work with a McKinsey or a BCG or a Flipkart or Amazon. But then one has to ask oneself, why do I think I will be able to get that job at Amazon or Flipkart or McKinsey or whichever company? Because ISB, 1 year of ISB is not going to do some magic that suddenly an Amazon which was not interested in you at all will get interested. Okay, so any business school is going to add value only if you bring the right ingredients. Okay, so if you want to do a major shift in your career, it is possible. There are a lot of people who have put in that effort and they have been able to do it. But it is also important to be realistic to begin with. So if you see that you have a certain background, ask yourself, what are the transferable skills that I bring? Is there something I carry forward in terms of the industry I have worked in? Is there something I carry forward in terms of the function I have worked in? If your industry and function do not relate in any way to what you want to do, then we have a problem. Okay, and then it's not that ISB has a problem, but then the recruiter will have a problem when you graduate. The interviewer will have a problem because when they discuss things with you, you'll not be able to relate with what you're saying. Okay, so it's important to have that alignment. It's important to have those dots connected in a way that you are able to present a coherent career goal than just a fancy aspiration that may or may not relate with what you have done. So when you talk of short-term career goal, do the right research, touch upon or talk about how you have talked to people from the industry you want to get in and how you realize that your past experience will help you with the help of an MBA and with the learning. And of course, end of the day, for example, a McKinsey doesn't recruit you if you don't have an MBA in a certain position. So ISB will open those doors, but you have to have done the research and you have to present through your essay that this is what I bring, and this is why I think I would like to work as a consultant with McKinsey or as a product manager with Amazon. So do the right research, present it not just in isolation, but in connection with your past experience. And then move on to the long-term goal, where you may want to present how this extrapolates to something larger that you fancy or that you envision doing, which is great. But again, think of what impact you would like to bring than the designation. Again, it's very normal to say, I want to be a CEO in the long term. I want to be an entrepreneur in the long term. And no MBA worth his salt will not want to be a CEO/entrepreneur. Okay, so the idea is you have to be able to bring in some direction, some extrapolation of your short-term goal, and show indirectly or directly the kind of impact, the kind of innovation, the kind of change you want to bring in the industry or in the function that you're getting into. So the reader is impressed with the fact that you have thought through it than just writing a blanket wish of becoming a CEO or entrepreneur. But like I said, do not end up spending, I don't know, out of 400 words, do not end up spending 150 or 200 words on your long-term goal, because you know, and I know, and the reader knows that 8 years, 10 years down the line, what will happen? We don't have complete control. There are a lot of externalities to it. And then the markets are changing so fast that, 20 years ago, no father would have allowed their son to work with a taxi company, but now, an Uber or Ola jobs are so much in demand. So the idea is markets are changing, we are changing, our perspective is changing. So it's okay to not have a very rigid, a very focused long-term goal, but as long as it's aligned and it's larger than your short-term goal, it's perfectly fine. And then why ISB? Like I said, whatever you say, ISB has great faculty, ISB has great campus, great curriculum, all those collaborations with MIT and Kellogg and everything. Everyone is going to write them, and ISB knows what it has. So ISB is in no need of that ego massage of what they have. So they don't want to read thousands of essays with the best faculty names and the best exchange programs. But what are they asking for in that case? They are asking for, how do all of that story that you have told till now, that I've done this, I want to do this. So they want you to have done the right research and understand if ISB can help you achieve that. If you want to work with, I don't know, a company that is into automotive cars, if, you want to work with Tesla, ISB is not going to get you there. Okay. So then have you done the right research to get the understanding of where do you or how what components of ISB, whether it's a certain course or a specialization or a certain exchange program. It's easy to say I want to go on an exchange to Kellogg, but then when you are into ISB, you realize a lot of people don't want that exchange program. They are looking for a job in India, and they would rather be in India, network with Indian recruiters and Indian friends, than just spend 2 months or 3 months in US and come back and realize, oh, I missed out on something important. Okay, so it's important to know why I want certain things at ISB, and that is what should come in your why ISB component of the essay, where you should be able to touch upon what you want and why you want, or what you want and how is it going to help you go from point A to point B. Okay, so in summary, I think if you pack these three well in those 400 words, and to tell you, ISB doesn't allow you even 401 words, so you have to have 400 words, then it will, if a good career goal essay can actually seal the deal for you.
Awesome. So Prashant, completely agreed on that. I think two aspects which I personally liked in your points. One is that you need to have the right ingredients, right? You need to have the right experiences background, because your past plus ISB would lead you to the future. So you need to be able to show that you have the right past, right knowledge, right experiences. You have done something on top, and you can add the ISB layer on top of that and achieve your goals. It can't be like my 1 year, that my past is completely different. At ISB, I would be doing something completely drastically different, and I would reach at point 3, which is again completely different. So you need to be able to link your past with ISB and then connect both of those with the future. So I think that's very important. And the point that you mentioned, right? Whatever you say, there's going to be nothing super unique. If you're going to talk about generic points about ISB, that ISB has great ranking, great campus, your great visiting faculty, this and that, or great alumni network. These are very generic points which the school already knows about. You can't be telling us that, hey, about these things, because we know that, right? There's nothing unique that you can bring over there. But if you're able to identify certain niche aspects of the program that specifically add value to your achieving your career goals, then it makes sense, right? So look at specific courses, talk about specific clubs, get into those nitty-gritties, identify what kind of activities, what are the specific things that happen during the program, during the course, that correlate with your career goals, right? So if your career goal is to get into, let's say, financial services, right, or consulting, or tech product management, right, then you can't be talking about something, your other generic aspects of the program, because those are not really going to help you achieve your goals. So identify those specific aspects, specific faculties, specific courses, which can help you with your goals, and then bring those into the application. That makes more sense rather than talk about just generic aspects about the school. So hope this helps. Prashant, do we also want to take up the reapplicant essay right now, or do we want to talk about differentiating your application first?
Yeah, I think let's take the reapplicant essay as a separate section so that we touch upon the other aspects of being a reapplicant. But on that note, I mean, one, thanks for summarizing the career goal essay so well. I think people do end up writing a lot of generic stuff. So what you said makes sense. And on that note, in the beginning of the session, I said that there is a big announcement that we have to make. And I'm so glad to announce that e-GMAT and ISB Mantra have collaborated to give you, especially if you are an e-GMAT student, to give you ISB Mantra services through its channel. And if you are an e-GMAT student, so you will get a special waiver, you'll get a special discount, a special price on ISB Mantra application and interview services. So in your chat, you will have the email IDs where you can reach out if you're an ISB Mantra, if you're an e-GMAT student and you want to apply to ISB in round 1 or take interview preparation or the eventual rounds, round 2 and round 3. So take advantage of that collaboration. The best GMAT company and the best ISB consulting company come together just for you. Okay, so on that note, I will move to the next section where we will talk about differentiating your application. And Sanjay, this is again talked about on different forums, on whether with GMAT Club or between or among candidates. How do I differentiate my application if I am from an overrepresented pool? I mean, sometimes it's the male Indian engineer, or sometimes these days, it's a lot about people who have worked with e-commerce companies or, one of those Flipkart, Amazon, and they have worked as an analyst with one of the analytics companies. So these are some upcoming fields where we get a lot of candidates from. So how does one differentiate their application if they are from an overrepresented pool of applicants?
Fair. So, and yes, this is a very common question. I remember during my time working with ISB in admissions and at every info session, right? This would be the most common question asked, right? How do I stand out? What do I do to stand apart from the crowd? I work in the IT field. I work with tech companies like Wipro, Infosys, thousands of applicants, thousands of people over there. How do I stand apart, right? And it is a challenge, right? It's not the easiest of things, but you need to, as an applicant, you need to think about it more deeply and see it's not just you as an IT background person or coming from one field who has to stand apart, right? Even niche profiles do need to stand apart, right? If you think that a chartered accountant is a rarity at ISB, that's not the case, right? A good 5-6% of the cohort is made up of chartered accountants. huge number of chartered accountants, CFA holders do apply to the program. So even they need to struggle, or even they need to identify things in their profile to stand apart from other applicants. It may not just be for getting that admission offer, it is also for getting that scholarship, right? So scholarships are limited. Hardly 10-12% of the cohort ends up getting a merit scholarship. So even those diverse niche profiles are competing with each other to stand apart, and everyone needs to do that. Everyone needs to figure out, especially in India, right? We are a billion plus population. At every stage, we need to figure out to stand apart or stand out from the crowd as such. Now, what you need to look at, right? That ISB is not averse to your kind of profile. You may think that, hey, I'm from an overrepresented pool. What can I do to stand apart, or how do I bring value to ISB? And your ISB is really against me or doesn't want to admit me. That's not the case, right? Even if you're an engineer, 70% of ISB's cohort is made up of engineers. So 900 cohort, we are talking about a 600 plus students coming from an engineering background. Out of those engineer backgrounds, you would see fair number, hundreds of applicants coming from their IT tech industry as well. So it's not as if you don't have a chance, right? There are people with your kind of profile background or making it to the program every year. So if they can make it, why not you? What you need to evaluate, or what you need to focus on, is identifying that USP of yours. What is that unique or strong thing about you that possibly no one else or not many people bring to the classroom, right? And this could be through your experiences. So it could be through projects, assignments that you have done, or the kind of work you have done. It could again be through your extracurriculars or outside the classroom achievements that you can stand apart. You can also stand apart by your academic GMAT GRE score, or by making a great application and doing a great interview, performing really well in the interview. So there are avenues that you can look at, that you can work on to stand apart from the crowd. You need to evaluate that. You need to do that self-reflection and try to identify what is that unique about me, right? And this uniqueness could be in multiple areas. It could be in extracurriculars, it could be in academics, it could be work profile, the kind of projects you have done. It could be by making a great, you're writing great essays, performing really well in the interview. So it could be through those multiple avenues, but you need to evaluate what is it that is unique, or what is that strong point about you, right? If you're not very good in your academics, then try to stand apart or stand out through your GMAT or GRE score. If your GMAT GRE is average, your work profile is average, then look at standing out through your extracurricular contributions, through your achievements over there. If you're average in all of these, look at making a great application, being really strong in the interview, impressing the panel through your interview performance, and standing out over there. So you can, out of the 5-6 parameters, right, that the school is looking at, you can't be an outlier on all of those. That's practically impossible for everyone, right? You can't be a 5 out of 5 on all of those. There would be, even people who make it, get a scholarship, are usually 4 or 5 out of 5 on 1 or 2 of those parameters, and then there are 3 or 4 on the other parameters. So similarly, you can be average on your work profile. You could be, say, average on, let's say, your academics, but then look at the other 2-3 areas where you can be a 5 out of 5 or a 4 out of 5, and that is enough to crack an ISB admission. So as I said,
Right.
you don't need to be an A or an expert in everything. You can be average on few parameters, but you need to identify 1 or 2 areas where you can be an A or an outstanding candidate. And if you are able to do that, if you're able to position yourself on those 1-2 parameters as a really strong candidate, that is a job done. That's what you need. You don't need to be an expert on everything.
Right. No, and what you just said, if I have to say it differently, all I would say is ISB is looking for reasons to select you, not looking for reasons to reject you. So it's more of a selection process than an elimination process, like probably a CAT is, because there's just so many people. There are 2.5 lakh, 2 lakh people writing the CAT. But the good thing is ISB is looking for how and what do you bring to the class. And the other good part is ISB has 900 plus seats. So if you're applying to an international school as an Indian, you never have more than 20, 30, 40 seats. But ISB 900 seats, if you give them the right reasons to select you, there is no reason you will not make it, just because you are an engineer, or just because you are a chartered accountant, or coming from a standard analytics profile. So think about that and ask yourself, what is it that I can bring to the table, and try and differentiate yourself, one from the external pool of applicants, and then the internal, which means, let's say someone from your own organization, if they were to apply, how do you differentiate yourself from that person? Ask that as well. Okay, good. So that we have touched upon how to build a strong application. We have touched upon how to differentiate your application. But a good number of candidates have to reapply, probably because they didn't approach their application right in the first go, probably because they couldn't perform well on the interview, probably because they had a low GMAT. It's always difficult to point at one reason why they couldn't make it. It's always, and it's often a combination of these. But that brings us to the question on reapplying. So is it a good idea to reapply, and what are your chances as a reapplicant?
Okay. So, of course, never give up on the first attempt itself, right? A rejection this year doesn't mean that you would never make it to ISB. I have seen candidates or known of candidates who have made it to ISB, to the PGP program, and sometimes even with a scholarship in their second, third, or fourth attempt as well. So it is possible to make it as a reapplicant. The school doesn't really differentiate you or your, there's no negative, upfront negative attached to your profile if you're a reapplicant. But what the school asks you, right, if you're a reapplicant, is that, hey, if you got rejected last year or in the previous past, then what has changed in your profile now, or what has changed in your story that we should be evaluating, putting in the effort to evaluate you again, right? Think about it. You applied, let's say, in round 2 last year. Round 2 deadline was in December. You're applying, you got your rejection result by, let's say, you got shortlisted for an interview. Interview happened in Jan, Feb. You got your decision by, let's say, Feb, and you're reapplying in September this year. So there's hardly been a 6-7 month gap since your last application, right? Why should the school be putting in that effort to reevaluate you now in just a 7-8 month gap if nothing has changed? So that's where the reapplicant essay comes into play, right? The school gives you an opportunity, you tell the school that what has changed, what has improved since your last application, that they should be putting in the effort to reevaluate you. And if you are able to show that, if you're able to show that there's certain thing that has improved, you now bring a stronger value to the classroom, you stand as good a chance of making it to the program as a first time applicant. So there's no difference in your chances of making it to the program, whether you're a first time applicant or a reapplicant. The only difference is, as a reapplicant, you need to put in that extra effort to write that reapplicant essay of 200 words and tell the school what has improved in your profile, what has changed since your last application, that you deserve this effort, this second effort from the school. Till the time you're able to do that, as I said, your chances don't change. But Prashant, at this point to you, any tips or any guidance to the audience on what they can do, what they can cover in the reapplicant essay?
Right. I think that's important, because one, it's good to know that you have to show that change. But what are the different parameters that you can show improvement? I mean, one, of course, if you work in an organization for another year or another few months, then you are expected to have taken on more projects. So talk about those projects, how these projects were, or this particular project was different or added more learning to your experience, uh, versus all that you had presented before. So in the past few months, how is it that professionally you come as a stronger candidate? Second, touch upon any personal accomplishments or personal initiatives or leadership initiatives that you may have taken outside the work. And that's where it's not just about presenting things, it's also about doing things. So if you know that you are a reapplicant, you'd rather do things that make you stand out as a reapplicant, that give you that opportunity to show that, oh, I'm coming back again, but I'm bringing more to the table. And then the easiest way is to improve your test score. So if you can improve your GMAT, and of course, I mean, if that is the reason for reject, if you had a 710, you got a 720, that's not going to change things significantly. But then if you had a 650, and with a 650 you needed everything to work in your favor to make it, now with a 710, 720, like Sanjay said, a few things may be here and there. You may not be an A on everything, but still you can make it if you present a strong application. So if you can touch upon these three components, and it's a short essay, 200-word essay, so be precise and just show that you come as a stronger candidate.
Yep.
Great. So I
That's
think
fine.
fairly that is what we had to discuss today. We do have some questions. We will be happy to address those. Some of them we have been able to through the conversation. But one question from Aliza: how many times can one reapply? And I mean, of course, I will let you give that technical answer. But what I can throw light on is we had at ISB Mantra a candidate who made it in his fifth attempt. Okay, so there was this candidate who had applied 4 times already. He came to us when we tried fifth time. It did work, so I can certainly vouch for 5 times. I don't know, Sanjay, is there a sixth attempt as well?
Personally, so there's no limit as such. You can apply as many times as you want. My advice over here is that if you have had two back-to-back attempts, right, and being unsuccessful, then possibly take a step back, think why you're like just reapplying again and again is you possibly is not the trick, right? You need to evaluate by yourself that why is it that you're not making it? What is that negative in your profile or in your story that is not selling with the school? And then go back, work on that weakness, and then apply once you have covered that weakness to a certain extent. Uh, Believe me, it's not always just a GMAT score. I've known of applicants making it even with a 610, 620 GMAT score. So there are applicants. I saw a question earlier where someone said had a 318 GRE and what are the chances? I've known of candidates making it with a 318 GRE as well, 610 GMAT as well. Below 600 ISB has a filter. So below 600 usually you would not see any candidate making it. But above 600, you'll see a 610, 620 making it to the class every year. You'll see that in the range of GMAT scores at ISB. Similarly, for GRE, you'll see candidates with a 314, 315 plus making it as well. So you do stand a chance. It depends on what is the other aspects that what are the other areas or how strong your profile or other aspects of your application are. Similarly, I see this question by the Honest Bishop on the screen right now. A 770 plus score is not a guarantee of an admit. I have personally rejected applicants with 760, 770, 780 on the GMAT if they don't have, if that's the only thing that they have. If they don't have a decently good profile, if they are not going to bring value to the classroom, if their academics are really poor, if they are just, and this happens here sometimes, and pardon my language, with such a high GMAT score, some candidates become what we say, complacent. They think कि मेरा तो हो ही जाएगा. I have such a great score. I have a guaranteed admit. They just don't put any effort in preparing for the interview or write really shoddy essays. And believe me, we have rejected those candidates. Reading the essay, just rejected upfront because the person has done a shoddy job with the essays. So 770 is not a virtual guarantee of an admit. Don't bank on that. If you come across super complacent or cocky, believe me, the school has the attitude or the admission directors have the attitude to throw you out upfront and not give you a chance at all. So be humble, make sure that you bring value over there, show do your best on the essays as well, and not get complacent with a great GMAT score. Can you apply with a GRE score? Absolutely, you can. The school started accepting GRE in 2016 onwards, 2015, 16 onwards. It's been accepting for the last 6 years. So you can surely apply with a GRE score as well. Okay, let me take this question from Atharva. If you want to change your field to consulting or finance, how do you showcase that you will be a good fit for it at ISB? See, again, your past performance does become an indicator of your future performance the way BFSI companies give a mutual fund companies give a disclaimer that your past performance is not a reflection. On the contrary, at ISB, your past performance or in your career, past performance does become a reflection of the future. So if you are looking to change fields, right, you're coming from something else and looking to change fields to consulting, finance, marketing, anything else, right? Look at, as Prashant mentioned, right? Look at the transferability of your skills, right? What have you done in the past? What kind of competency skills that you've built, which would be handy in your future career path? If you're able to show that transferability of skills, then you're good to go, right? More than the job profile, just the designation or industry, what matters is the skills, right? I have personally worked across industries. I've worked in financial services, I've worked in pharma, I've worked in education, now in education, right? And every time those transfers have been possible, or job roles or industry changes have been possible, because I have been able to show transferability of the skills. So till the time you're able to show that and show how ISB would, whatever missing skills or competencies you have, right? How ISB would be able to fill those gaps through the program, through the coursework, you're good to go and make that case for yourself for consulting, finance, or any other industry that you want to get into. We have seen, I've seen a dentist from the armed forces getting into McKinsey, with dentists in the armed forces with 15 plus years of experience getting into McKinsey in consulting, right? So we have seen some really drastic changes as well, mainly because they have been able to show how their past experiences plus the PGP would make them ready for their future career path. So focus on that.
Right, and of course there are a few similar questions where someone is asking, if I am from a software background, how do I switch my industry, or what do I do to show that I can same answer or similar answer? One, touch upon your transferable skills, and then there is a question around certification. So that can be one way. That, I mean, I've had one candidate making it to NYU with no background in finance. He had done 11 certifications in finance, and gradually his company. So it's not just about the MBA application, right? When you have interest in certain field, your organization or your ecosystem, your environment acknowledges that, and you're able to get that transition. So he was able to get an initial step into the door into finance, but then he had some impressive certifications to show. So all that helps. It cannot be just based on certifications, but it should be a package where you show what you've done and what you've done at work and what you've done beyond work. So that is again one way to do that. And of course, if you have similar questions, like I announced in between the session, that e-GMAT and ISB Mantra have a formal arrangement now. So if you're an e-GMAT student, you can approach us for help with your application, and e-GMAT students get attractive waivers. So when you reach out, you will get those details. Okay, so we'll take maybe one or two last questions. Please tell us something about recommendation. How does it matter?
Okay, so important aspect of the application. Many a times people leave it to the very end and then struggle and do a quick thing. Now, first important thing is to identify the right recommender, right? Ideally, your recommender should be someone who's worked with you in the recent past, so in the recent last 2-3 years, ideally. And of course, go to someone whom you're confident would say positive things about you. Don't go to someone whom you've had a really bad experience with that would be like, oh, you are super lazy and not you. Obviously, you want to go to someone who will say positive things about you. But what are the things you look for when selecting the recommender, right? So as I said, recent, so someone who's worked with you in the recent 2-3 years. Relevance, right? Would the person be talk about relevant experiences that you've had? So for example, in your application, in your essays, you're talking about a project that you did 2 years ago, and you're trying to make that as the key story in your application, that, hey, this was a project I did it really well. My contribution was amazing. I learned quite a bit from that project, right? If that's becoming the base of your story, then possibly go to someone who worked with you on that particular project, so that they can vouch and corroborate your claims that you're making about that particular experience, right? So go to someone who can talk about the highlight or the key story in your application. Go to someone who can see. You need to ideally go to someone senior than you. You can't just go to a co-worker. Ideally, you should have a reporting relationship. So a manager level person is a great idea. If not the direct manager, could be a senior colleague as well, but someone who can vouch or give specific examples of your contribution at that workplace. Don't go to the CEO of the company or go to the director of the company who would just give very generic comments about you, right? Go to someone who's worked with you closely, can talk in detail about your contributions, give specific examples, rather than going just by the designation to someone who would make very generic comments and not really corroborate your claims in the application. See, the recommendation is school's way of getting a third-party testament for you, right? So you're going to say good things about yourself, you're going to say great things about yourself, but is there someone else who believes in you and would vouch for you or not? So the recommender is that person. So go to someone who knows you well, would take the time, effort to dig into details and talk about specific examples rather than generic comments.
Right. Good, and that probably leaves us with time for just one last question, and I'm happy to take it because I really like the question. So, is it necessary to keep the short-term goals aligned with historical roles offered by companies that recruited ISB? And it's a good question because often candidates think, "Oh, X company has never recruited ISB, so can I work there?" Or should I mention companies that have typically been recruiting at ISB? But the problem is, this is not how you approach your career goal essay. So, one thing to answer, or one thing that is a self explanatory, is that ISB has a certain set of recruiters because it has a certain set of students. Okay, so recruiters is a factor of students, and not that recruiters just land up there without knowing what kind of students. And so when you talk about it being a historical trend, it's also a historical trend that X kind of students are there in the school. And when the school sees that, oh, this year we have some interesting students, the school has a career services which is called CAS, and it reaches out to companies, it brings those companies because it knows that there are certain kind of students who are going to do great in X kind of roles. So the idea is, it's an entire system that works in a very beautiful way. Now, while developing your essay, should you just look at that list and be disappointed that my dream company is not there? Not really. You can very well have your own connects at that company. It is possible that the company never recruited at ISB. For example, Byju's. There was a time when Byju's was growing and it had not recruited ISB, but then it ended up recruiting after that and after that, and eventually several years. Or same goes for several other companies. So there are a lot of companies that start recruiting at ISB with time, and there is a beginning at some point. So don't worry if the company is not recruiting. Find similar companies. Okay, if you really want to mention a company in your essay, mention that you would love to work with company X or company Y or similar companies, which is fine. You don't have to be very fixated at a certain company, because even in real life, you try to work with a certain company, you apply there, it doesn't happen, you apply to the next best. So approach it that way. Be flexible, and it's fine to mention a company which may not have recruited ever at ISB. Great. On that note, huge thanks to Sanjay for all those insights. We would never have gotten them because he has first-hand experience of evaluating so many applications. And thank you all for being such great listeners, great questions, and have a good day. We will see you soon. Thank you.
All the best, everyone who are applying in round 1 and round 2. All the best for that, and make the most of it.